Okay, so I'm having turnip and parsnip dal and some
Well, one out
lemon
of
tea.
three ain't bad. Turnip and parsnip, you're really patient today.
You want to try some?
Nope. Well, okay, if there's some dal. Oh, it's hot. I better wait. Well, we've done a good job with that turnip and parsnip, I gotta say. It's tasty. So, did you want to talk about anything?
No, you're
Okay.
talking, I thought you said.
Yeah, exactly. So, a while back I was taking on China and taking on the who. I was saying, who are you? Who. And it's almost like laughing. Yeah. So, shame on you, China, and shame on you, who. I'm not talking about the Who. That's a pretty darn good group. Basically doesn't exist anymore, but because only half the members are alive now. But yeah, so turns out the head of Who is a guy called Tedros something or other. He's from Ethiopia. He's a Marxist, and it's a Marxist government. I was wondering why they had such close ties with China. So China's, I would call them probably an unofficial colony of China. China is extending its claws everywhere. So they're running a little Maoist so-called insurgency. It's really terrorism in India, and they're called the Naxalites. They basically they're theoretically cooperating in a democratic government experiment in Nepal. The experiment, I'm sad they will almost surely fail. And how will it fail? Well, the Marxists will take over. It's a coalition right now, but these are Maoists, right? Marxists, communists have this thing. It started off with the Mensheviks, like the Social Democrats in the Soviet Union or in Russia. And so a real revolution happened. Mensheviks took power before they could have elections. The Bolsheviks, they call it a revolution, had a second revolution, but it was really just a coup. And they took over. They made sure, they knew they were going to lose the election miserably. They made sure they took over. That's the way they roll, you know what I'm saying. And then ultimately, once they take over, heads will roll. So that's the way they roll too. Or they get their opponents, and that's everyone. Their former allies suffer probably more than anyone else. So that happened to the Mensheviks, it happened to the socialist revolutionaries, and it went on and on and on. So, even like Maxim Gorky, I suspect he was, poisoned or something like that. They think he died of natural causes, but I'm a little suspicious. He did die young, and he was a supporter, but he made the mistake of criticizing. I think he survived into the time of Stalin. So, the Who just lollygagged around. I think they waited about a month before, we'll say 3 weeks, before they declared the state of things in China and I won't say all around the world, but somewhat around the world.
With the coronavirus.
Coronavirus. Thank you. An international, something like an emergency or something like that. No, that when they should have declared that is when the Chinese kind of fessed up and said, this is around the 30th of December, hey, we're going to have trouble next year. That's when it should have been done, not near the end of January. So what he was doing, people are floating this on the internet, and I'm afraid it is true. He's in the pockets of the Chinese, and what he was sitting there saying was, if there's a travel ban, they've been against travel bans and against quarantine, and they're mixing up travel bans with quarantines. Quarantines might not work, travel bans should work, because countries have the ways of blocking people from coming in and not so much leaving. And that's what it should have happened. December the 30th, last year, every country in the world should have closed the gates to China. Boom, except for their own nationals who were in China, and they should have been quarantined right away. So it kind of got out of hand. Now, there's only one thing. I hate to have to say this, but the United Nations organization, the UNO, it's really the United Nazis organization, is all wrong in this. The WHO were all wrong. The Chinese were insane. It looks as though they spent a month and a half covering things up to themselves. And of course, by extension, the rest of the world, before they actually got semi-serious about it. But you know what made them serious? It was actually, see, what scares them more than all this stuff traveling around. You know, they don't care about the rest of the world. You know, like 50 million people die, extra people die. Who cares? You know, like 300 million people die every year of flu, or 600 million die. Who cares? You know, who? So the deal is, what really, I realized what changed it is the economic thing. Other countries saying, no travel in and out. Do you think Canada did that?
No.
No. You know what country did it that made the difference?
United States.
Exactly right. And you know who actually said it?
Trump.
It was Trump.
Yeah.
So the deal is, here's the deal. If Trump says, it's good to eat your veggies, it's good to eat kale, I'm not going to say, oh, that's a 4-letter word to me now, kale, because it came out of Trump's mouth. If he says something sensible, if he does something sensible, I'm not going to just, distance myself from that. That's the thing that's smartened China up. They might actually close it down. If you look at the figures for incidents, not so much deaths. Deaths still going up like this. But what's happening with the cases, now that's reported cases, and that's China. You can't necessarily believe what you see, but it's kind of going like this, right? So they might have got a handle on it. And the whole thing is...
I like how James was showing me the trend,
exactly
not
right.
the camera.
Yeah.
So you have to look it up
goes
for
like
yourself.
this. And of course you got to reverse it, right? So like that. So it's looking a bit that way. I don't know if the Chinese are doing that. They actually, I don't know what they're thinking of. They actually ordered people back to work. You know, they've been kind of locking people down. And I'm going, what? You stupid morons. But, and moron in this case just means dull, okay? That's what it means in the original Greek. That's what it means when I say it. It just means dull. It's not the classification that was used for, let's say, Down syndrome people. Down syndrome people are great. People who are willfully dull, people who read one book and think that they know everything, like a lot of people out at university, like a lot of putative left-wingers. They're one book better than Donald Trump. Trump's never read a book and think he knows everything.
Well, it's not exactly read one book. It's people who read a lot of popularizations and expect that, if the person is mirroring back what they would like to believe themselves, and they think that, oh, well, that person's right because I want to believe that I'm right about everything, and da-da-da. And really, popularizations, the authors who write them, journalists, what do they know, right? They've done a little bit of research, as much as everybody should expect to do themselves. And they've written a book. And why? They're not an authority on anything, but they're pulling the cash for it. And so mostly, I am a huge fan of public libraries, as you know. And I believe that most people should be not buying any books, actually. They shouldn't spend a cent on books. They should just go to their public library and then go to their local universities, or, to do some further research on subjects that they're concerned about or very interested in, because the universities will have the primary sources that you need so that you can make an educated decision for yourself, right? You go to the public library, you're going to get some popularization. You're going to, maybe a cover of a book you're going to see, and you're going, oh, wow, what do I have to know about whatever, viruses right now? Is this, and so then you're reading a bit and you're like, whoa, I didn't realize this was such an important issue because I've been, nose to the grindstone, whatever, but it's an issue and now I should go research it further at the university or whatever. So I'm a big fan of the public library. I'm not a big fan of popularizations.
Yeah.
But I understand that a lot of people don't have time to be well informed about everything. Like, I can't possibly know everything. There's so much to know. But, something might spark my interest at the public library, and then I go, wait a minute, I've fallen behind in this one area or whatever, and I need to go do some further research, right? How do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, you're not the average person. You actually study some stuff in depth. The average person has got plenty of time. Don't watch TV. Don't play video games. Don't do texting. Don't go for Sunday drives. Don't play hockey. Go out and have a nice walk to stay in shape or stuff like that. People have got plenty of time. It's just they spend it on the wrong thing. That's it.
Well,
it's that simple.
I don't know. I think that we're kept busy. There's not, like, a lot of the time, people have talked about it, how we don't actually need a 40-hour work week. Why is 40 hours expected of a person, a full-time job? And then nowadays, you're lucky if you can land yourself a full-time job, so you're not going to get the benefits. You're not going to get the, what do you call it, the pension to live, and that's just expected nowadays, that you're not going to get that. So maybe we should push full-time hours back to, say, 25. Can a person live on 25 hours of work a week? Okay, well, let's boost that wage so that they can live on 20. Right?
But understand, no gold breaking while you're at work.
Exactly. There's a lot of people, they're putting in time, they're collecting a paycheck, and they're not actually doing the work while they're there.
Yeah, they're at the coffee cooler. Or
shuffling papers back and forth or whatever. And
comparing their hockey pool things.
And so they don't actually, do they need to be working 40 hours? Is it any benefit to society to have them working 5 hours a week, honestly, because they're probably not even putting in 5 hours of labor. They're driving around
at
if they
the
get
city,
a company vehicle.
The fairly good workers did 5 hours.
Okay.
On average. But, the less good ones, 4 hours wouldn't be unusual.
So anyway, what I'm saying is, maybe 25 hours a week is actually a reasonable amount of time to spend, and then the rest of the time a person can cook their own food, grow their own food. There's things that we have outsourced out of our daily life, just living, just to keep ourselves alive, that we should never have outsourced.
Yep.
I can't hope that anybody out there cares whether my food is healthy. So why would I outsource that to them? Don't outsource your health or your children's health, your family's health to some stranger. Why would you do that? That's crazy. But we've done that. As a society, a lot of people, they're putting in the hours at work, and then, like, for me, I was actually working and I was coming home exhausted, and I'm like, how can people do this? They can't possibly cook for themselves and this and that. And, back then I hadn't discovered the wonders of a slow cooker. But still, it was exhausting for me, and I think it would have been, even if I had a slow cooker, honestly. But I was trying to grow my own food as much as I could, and I was hanging out laundry, which I don't know. That's a lot of extra effort, and so I was doing all these other extra things to try to be a responsible person, not using too much of the Earth's resources. I had a little hen that was providing eggs for us.
That was a little silky chick?
Yeah, she was a little silky hen.
She drowned in the pool out here, is that what you were saying?
Yeah, she did.
Too bad.
Yeah, it is too bad. She was a sweet little gal. I liked her a lot.
I think she loved you too, right?
Yeah, she was nice. We'd cuddle and eat candies together. I fed her candy.
Well, wouldn't have to worry about her teeth rotting. That's awesome.
Oh, I shouldn't have fed her candy. But she liked it. I noticed because I was wearing a candy necklace one day, and she pecked my neck, and I was, ow! Because it's very sharp. And because we were cuddling, and she wanted the candy. And so then I figured, oh, she likes candy, so I started giving her candy.
And you called her Helen, is that what?
I did. Helen the hen.
I never got to meet Helen before my time, but
Yeah.
I kind of regret it.
We'll have hens. If you want to eat eggs, I want to have hens.
So, I wanted to do a review of a reviewing. This is Combray by Marcel Proust. I should have said, not for everyone necessarily. Big, long, glumphing sentences. I don't know if this guy ever really worked in his life at all. I think he was independently wealthy. Well, not really independent, because he'd be dependent on what he inherited. And there were people like that. This is about 100 years ago. Like, you read about Virginia Woolf, and she wrote this book, A Room of One's Own. Wow, that's nice. She never, I don't know if she ever, well, she did work on Hogarth Press with her husband, put the stuff out, but she did some copy editing, I think, and maybe a little bit of typesetting and stuff like that. But someone of a left wing, they were kind of like artistic left wingers, like yellow left wingers, the Bloomsbury circle of people that hung with her. But and her husband was quite left wing, right? Leonard Woolf. And but I don't think even him, like left winger, but he's basically living off of interest on someone else's investments. John Maynard Keynes, the economist, would invest the money that they'd inherited. And they just lived off that. A room of one's own. There are a lot of men who've never had a room of their own. Poor people. It's just like people. She was saying that women have a right to a room of one's own. Like, let's make sure that people have got stuff over their head. And she's just talking about some sort of leisure class, some sort of Victorian sort of stuff. Often La La Land. So, the stuff that she and the people who are in that group tended to write was stuff where people just sit around and drawing. It's kind of like an Agatha Christie, where they're maids and servants. And honest to God, like before World War I, it's kind of like that. They had maids and servants and garbage gardeners, and what's that about? So Marcel Proust, it's kind of like that. He comes from this kind of like upper middle class or whatever. So here's some previews. Get ready. I've been reading a little bit of philosophy. This ain't philosophy so much as an autobiography of a philosopher and a mathematician, logician. The autobiography of Bertrand Russell. So he lived a long time. He went from 1872 until, I think he was about 94, 96 when he died. So he lived almost 100 years. A wonderful picture of him on the front. T.S. Eliot hung with the philosophical crowd for a while when he was in England. I think he came from St. Louis, Missouri originally. But he wrote something called Mr. Apollinax, if I'm mispronouncing it. Well, I'm mispronouncing it. And I think it was about Bertrand Russell. When Mr. Apollinax visited the United States, so this was a British guy. I think he went to Cambridge. What was it? His laughter was submarine and profound. So, profound means deep. But what he says is, he laughed like an irresponsible fetus. No chin. He would have looked a little like a fetus. But I'm going to be reviewing this in a while. I've got a few pages left to go. And hold on to your hats here, or your helmets. Strap them on. Introduction to Crystallography. This one's going to be a little down the road. I'm about a third of the way through it. It's short. But get ready. I know you'll want to read it. So what I'm reading this for is the structure of the nucleus of the atom. See if you can figure out what the structure is before I get reviewing this. The structure of the nucleus. The clue is, the key is, it's not a liquid drop. It's not a bubble of gas, as it were. And it's not a like an orbital model type of thing, something like plasma. It is a crystal. Can you figure out the crystal structure? The numbers give it away. So that's what I base it on, and I'm just looking at this to see if I can help out a little bit with my concept of the crystal structure of the nucleus. So what was it? One physicist ran across my concept of it. He was very patient. He listened to it for about 45 minutes, and all he said is, I was running the numbers with him, and I knew the numbers actually better than he did. He was a plasma physicist, so he didn't have to really know the numbers, specialize in something else, the numbers, the periodic table. And he said, after, just kind of quietly, I could follow up on what you're doing, but I'd lose my job. And all I said is, yep, he would. So see if you can figure it out. That's a preview. Go for it.